I'm Michael Holmes, and I'm interviewing John Cahill, a lifelong resident of Hopkinton. We're at his home at 11 C Street. And John, you take it away, and what we're looking for are your memories all through your life of Hopkinton.
I was born November 2nd, 1925. I had a midwife. Her name was Ella Gary, and she was the Red Cross nurse in Hopkinton at the time. She lived on Church Street. Her husband had an undertaking service. And I don't remember much until, I think probably the first memory I had was on Monday. My mother was outside with a tub of soapy water and a washboard.
Oh, you know what? I just want to make sure we're recording. John, I'm so sorry. I didn't press us to record. I was still... No, we're okay.
My mother was with a tub and a washboard, and she was scrubbing the clothes on Monday. It was a beautiful day, and she had a wringer that she operated by hand, and I was operating the wringer. And she told me not to put my fingers in. Of course, the first thing I did was put my fingers in there, but she just flipped two things and it came apart. And the other thing I can remember, all about the same time, was Ray McMullen was delivering oil or kerosene for Holmes's oil and gas station, which was on the corner of Grove and Main Street. And he delivered it in long square cans with a spout on them, and he was delivering it to my neighbor next door, Lizzie O'Connell. Lizzie and Mariah lived next door. At one time, that was the farm next door, and all the land between here and Main Street was part of his farm. And later on, he broke it up and built houses on A, B, and C Street. Then, the next thing, when I was 6, I went to the Center School for the first grade. And my teacher was Miss Lenahan. She lived on Ash Street, and her brother had been a general in the Civil War.
Oh, wow.
And the school children at that time, for Memorial Day, used to decorate his grave with flowers. Now they don't even know where it is. He might get a flag, he might not. And then, let's see, in 1929, with the Depression started. To begin with, I lived through Prohibition, the Depression, World War II, and I was married to a spicy Italian woman for 53 years. She never killed me. And my father was Irish, my mother was from Finland. And I can remember during the 30s, in the spring, my mother would go for a walk in the woods and pick mushrooms and walk along the old railroad track, which was behind our house, and pick fiddleheads, which were the top of a fern. And and then we went into out in the glebe in the swamp there, and we walked through there, and she picking various parts of a pond lily. We have a very large garden in the backyard. At the time, there was 3 of us, children, and we had chores to do. My chore in the garden was to take a small can with kerosene in it and pick all the bugs off the potato plants for 1 row before I could go out and play. We had 2 pigs across the tracks. We raised them. They cost $5 a piece, and we raised them until December. And Jerry Creedon used to butcher them. He kept one, and we had the other one. Later on, I could buy 100 roosters for $1, penny a piece. And we had them free range in the backyard. Of course, the hawks and the foxes got a few, but in November we used to kill them, and my mother used to can them.
The meat? Your mom canned the meat?
What's
the
that?
Chicken? Your mother canned the meat? Did she can the meat?
Huh?
Sorry, go ahead. Don't worry.
I can't. I'm sorry, I'm deaf.
No, you go ahead, John.
But at that particular time, I would say perhaps maybe 20% of the families in town had somebody working. And there wasn't any safety net. But Mr. Roosevelt got elected in 32 and he took office in 33. And the first thing he did was give all the surplus food the United States had stored. And they had a commissary in the town hall. Because it was a political thing, it was run by the Republicans. But you could get oranges, grapefruit, you could get lard, you could get butter. And they had them deal with Argentina. They have 5-pound cans of very good beef. And my father used to do a lot of cooking, and he used to make a goulash. And when I got to be 8 years old, my father bought me a single-shot .22. Told me to shoot all the squirrels and rabbits and partridges I could get. Because we had to eat. My father had work up until 1929. He was working for Stewart Body Company in Woodville, where he made fire engines. And Mr. Stewart had salesmen, and they didn't take any money on pay. Eventually it got to a point where he couldn't pay them, so they took the business over. It became a Farah fire engine.
Okay.
And my father was laid off from there. Roosevelt started this Works Progress Administration. It was known as the WPA.
Yep.
And you got 3 days work for $13 a week. Well, my father was Irish and he drank a lot. So a lot of the $13 went for booze. But my mother was an RM and she worked at the Milford Hospital 8 to 8 at night for 50 cents an hour. But before that, I can remember, houses had a room where people were born or died. Everybody had a, and she used to go and sit with the person that was dying until they died. And we used to kind of kid my mother about, all your patients die. I can remember walking with her because we didn't have a car at the time, down to Elm Street, and it was dark, and because there wasn't much traffic in those days. When it snowed, they plowed Walcott Street, but they didn't sand it, so all us kids used to slide from B Street down around the corner into C Street. Or if they used to plow Route 85 all down to as far as the last house, which at the time was Danahy's. And we used to, they used to stop up by the water tanks with a double runner. These are teenagers and young single, and they would ride from there down to the bottom of Cedar Street.
Sounds like fun.
It's an awfully long walk back. But I can also remember when they closed off West Main Street and let the people slide there, because there wasn't any traffic coming from Upton. In this area, there was probably 25 or 30 boys between the ages of 12 and 16. We had quite a gang. It was called the Lane Gang. There were a lot of fights, and the mothers in the rest of the town would tell the children, don't go down the lane because you'll get beat up.
Was it true?
Yeah.
Yikes.
Earlier than that, just the stories I heard, that there was a double house on Walcott Street which John Burns tore down, and there used to be a gambling place up on the second floor. And George Gasson and Jack Leonard went out to Chicago to learn how to run them. Of course, and the other thing that people don't realize is that if a married lady lost her husband, and she had nothing to fall back on, she could be a maid, taking laundry, or she could sell whiskey. There were a lot of kitchen bar rooms, and then some widows had callers. But some of the things I can remember was perhaps when I was in the 5th grade, there was a German dirigible came from the west to the east and followed Route 9. They let us out of school into the common, and all the trees that are so high now were small, And you could see over the roof, and you could see the big swastika on the back of it.
Really? Wow.
And later on, it blew up down, I think, in 1937 in Lakehurst, New Jersey. They had it on the move. They had it on the TV here a while ago.
The Hindenburg.
Hmm?
The Hindenburg.
Yeah. And the other thing I can remember is Admiral Byrd was going to the North Pole or the South Pole, I remember which. And he had this huge snow machine. And it came down Route 9 and it took up the whole road. And we went down to Framingham Center and the people lined up to see this big, huge machine. The tires on it were probably 16 feet high.
Wow.
And like for Christmas, we were lucky. There was only 4 of us. My mother would give us $1 apiece to do our Christmas shopping. We'd all pitch in money and buy my father a carton of Camel cigarettes. That's what he smoked. And for the rest of us, we would buy what was known as big little books. They were comic books. They were 10 cents a piece. And usually we had enough money between us so we could buy my mother a teapot. Well, people used teapots then. And they put the tea leaves in, and they had a tea strainer. And they had what they call a cozy to go over and keep it warm. At the same time, probably, I couldn't have been very old. I maybe was 10, maybe was 8. But the Lindbergh baby was kidnapped.
Uh-huh.
And that was the most horrible thing us kids thought. And we used to sit around talking what we ought to do to the guy whoever kidnapped him.
Justice was worked out.
I don't know whether they caught the guy that did it, but I think they got the wrong one. I'm not sure. It was a German that did it. I get a little older. I used to go uptown, and if anybody, there used to be a salesman come by. Someone called it, said the Evening Post. He'd give me 25 magazines to sell. I guess they were a nickel or a dime a piece. I go around knocking on doors, and I'd come back, and I think he'd probably give me a quarter. At the same time, I was Irish Catholic, and I was an altar boy. I was an altar boy for probably a couple of years, and then Pat Dolan had the paper store. And he asked me if I wanted to go to work for him. So I said, sure. Well, I had 100 newspapers. And I think I had to collect 12 cents a week from everybody because that's what it cost for the paper. 2 cents a day. I didn't deliver Sunday ones because they were sold at the store and up in front of St. John's Church. John McDonough and his brother had that contract up there. Well, we got a little older. Yeah, I was in the 8th grade at the time. It was 1938. And I was kind of a hazard, raising hell all the time. Always doing everything that wasn't nailed down. But I had to go back afternoon, a detention, usually from 1 to 3. Well, My teacher was at the time was May Ward. May Hallie afterwards. And it got dark and windy. She said, John, you better get your bicycle and go home. I got on my bicycle and started down by the fire station and looked up, and there was this huge flagpole in front of the common that fell over across the street. Now, nobody knew about the hurricane that was coming.
Oh.
I rode my bike up to see that, and then when I got up there, the Congregational Church, which is now the Korean Baptist, had a very tall steeple and a bell, and the whole thing came down.
Wow.
And then trees started coming down. And I'll be a reminder myself, we spent the whole hurricane outdoors, going around watching this and that. And afterwards it was over, I went home and got an axe, and we started clearing the roads. The next day, this was before they had chainsaws, they had crosscut saws. So you went into the Clover Farm store, which was in the parking lot where the drugstore uptown now, and it was a Clover Farm store, and the guy that owned it was the select man. Go in and you told him how many hours you worked, and they paid 50 cents an hour, which was a lot of money.
It is.
And you got a check from the town. I went to high school, and I started playing sports. And we went to school from 8 in the morning until 1. Well, I did very well the first year, but then the war came along, and I was playing football, and I was working down the Fenwell nights. I was supposed to be there at 3. I got there at 6, and we worked for a while, and then they had a break for supper, and we were all through at 11. Well, Henry Fitzpatrick had bought this Monterey pickup truck, and we had mattresses in the back, and we put canvas over the top. We were driving all the girls home. So I wasn't getting home very early, and my marks probably averaged a C. Well, years later, I went to Miss Harris's 92nd birthday party. Now, she was a science teacher, chemistry teacher, and the girls' basketball coach. And she had, in the 30s, 35, 36, 37, 38, she had an undefeated basketball team. Helen Katie played for her.
Oh, wow.
And she said to me, she was in a wheelchair now, and her mind was real sharp. And we were out at the Salem Cross Inn. That's on the western part of the state there. And she said, John, you could have done far better with school than you did. I said, yes, but I knew where I was going. As soon as I got through school, I went to the Marine Corps. The Catholic Church had CYO sports for the kids, boys. We were waiting for the priest to open up the gym there, which is at 1 Ash Street. And the building got set on fire, one corner. So John Cahill, you did that. I had to go up before Judge Riley. He had a court up on top of that building. It was a 2.5, 3-story building up next to the Congregational Church. And two of the selectmen wanted me to go to reform school. And the third selectman was Allison Williams. And he got up and he said, I think John is a good boy. He said, when I was his age, I set a barn on fire up in Vermont. And then nobody put me in jail. So I don't think John should go. Well, I don't know how my father did it, but he made restitution for the damage. And the sentence I got from the judge was I could not be out after 6 o'clock at night. And every Saturday I had to go to confession. And my father had to give me whiskey wax with a razor strap over a period of time.
Oh my, that's awful.
Well, come in.
Hi, John.
But that was really bad because I was 13 or 14 at the time. Halloween, I had to stay in the house. And I couldn't go out and raise hell. But eventually, I get through that. And I started mowing lawn for 50 cents. And one of the ladies asked me if I could wash the ceiling. I said, yeah, I'll do it. I would wash ceilings and walls for 50 cents an hour. And I had a little spending money. I had a little something I could give my mother. Because we could go to the show. We used to bum to Framingham. I think the show was a quarter. And then after that, we'd go to the Dixie Lee Diner. It was a great place. And you could get a hamburger with a slice of onion for a quarter. You get an apple pie with ice cream for a quarter. And the other thing we did an awful lot of was walking. Like, there's a pond on the way up to the golf course. It's called Duck Pond. It must be a good 3 or 4 miles from here. But we used to walk over there to go fishing. And we used to fish down, but this was a metropolitan water district for drinking water for Boston. We used to fish there, and they had a caretaker. His name was Sammy Livingston. And he made a deal with us that we could fish as long as we didn't set any brush fire. But that was just for the kids, not grown-ups. But at the time, the town was paying 50 cents an hour for the kids to fight brush fire. So there were many, many brush fires.
I didn't get it. Now I do. That's
no,
funny.
But they stopped paying the kids, and brush fire stopped. But after the war started, we have rationing. I think it gets 3 gallons of gas a week for your car. And the speed limit was 35 miles an hour. Well, you could buy black market things. And every farmer in town had a gas tank at the farm. And he got all the gas he wanted. Because they weren't trying to save gas, they were trying to save tires. The rubber tire?
Oh, right.
But they don't make rubber tires anymore. If you used to get 20,000 miles out of a set of tires, you were lucky.
Hmm.
But
Did your family have a car?
what?
Did your father and mother have a car?
My father and mother had a 1935 Ford in 1937. I think it cost $750. But none of my kids got to use it. Well, the other thing, the judge said that I couldn't get my driver's license till I was 21.
Wow.
But the war started in 41. I turned 17 in 42. I went down to the Marine Corps. They passed all the tests. And they said, go back and finish high school. And then come. So when I graduated in 43, I graduated June, I left in August. Well, I got a letter from them that told me I could report in at the federal building in Boston. So I called up Johnny Sayre. He had an express train went to Boston every day. I asked him if I could ride in with him. I did. I went in and they handed me a ticket to Union Station, Washington, D.C. Now here's a kid that had never been outside of Hopkinton, Framingham. I used to go to Boston once in a while, but everything was new to me.
Everything.
When I got in Washington, I met another group, and we went to Paris Island, South Carolina. We went by train, and as we started through the South, every railroad station had colored drinking fountains and white drinking fountains. I could never get over that.
Hmm.
I never had, well, we didn't have any colored people in Hopkinton. And I got through boot camp, all right, and I came home for a 10-day furlough just at Thanksgiving in 43. And it snowed that night, about 2 inches, and the game was between Hopkinton and Ashland was in Hopkinton. I went up early, and Jack Haniff and they used to take care of the field. Him and I, we swept off the line so they could play football. I had on this big Marine overcoat. And when I went back to North Carolina, I thought it was going to be warm. Well, they had 8 inches of snow down there. And none of the barracks were built yet. They had the foundations in, so we were sleeping in pup tents. A couple of guys got frostbite, but once you're in the Marine Corps, they own you. And I went to demolition school. I was 17, going on 18. And I got there to school probably a week early, and the instructor said, there's a box of dynamite, these are the caps, and this is how you do it. You go out there and you blow up anything that you can find in the area. Now,
Yikes.
now this is way out in the woods. I had one hell of a time.
It's right up your alley.
So, then in January we went by train. We left at, I'm going to say, probably 4 in the morning, and we stopped for breakfast in Atlanta, Georgia. And they had us march down the street, and they gave us military script. And so many would go in this diner, so many to a restaurant. And then the people that took the script had a hard job getting paid sometimes by the government. But it looked like the South was getting invaded again.
That's a good summary.
Well, we took us 7 days to go from East Coast to West Coast. And we had to pull over to the side, and every time a wounded train came by, from they were fighting in Africa at the time, and pull over every time a freight train coming through with military supplies on it. So we got out to St. Louis. We were in Pullmans. And 2 guys to the bottom bunk, 1 guy to the top bunk. They had a dining car. And we all chipped in our money and gave it to the porter in St. Louis to buy us some booze. Well, he got off and he never came back.
He bought the booze, but for himself.
It was his last stop.
That's funny.
We got out to California, took another train south down to Camp Pendleton. I think we got there about midnight. They took us to mess hall and gave us a sandwich of peanut butter and apple butter, comes out purple, and a cup of coffee, which you couldn't drink. And we went over to the barracks. Now, because it's open country down there, each one of the barracks is probably a mile away from the other. We walked in. Next morning we went to breakfast, and it was a big gully where we wasn't there the night before. They had a flash flood.
Oh, interesting.
But when I was in Camp Pendleton, they were training to go overseas. Well, I was working as an instructor of demolitions, and I was separated. I was living with the company, but I didn't have to do anything. I no guard duty or whatever they were doing. And
special treatment. Special treatment.
Yeah, because one Sunday morning I'm laying in bed. I had the top bunk. And some guy is trying to pull me by the foot, and I kick him in the face. And when I woke up, they said, "You know who that was?" I said, "No, that was the first sergeant." So I showered and got out of there until they were gone. Well, we did a lot of training. We did individual, squad, and then platoon, then company, and then battalion. Well, at that time, the United States has invaded war in Saipan, Tinian, and they had 2 generals. They were both named was Smith. One was Army and one was the Marine Corps. And they were arguing over who was charged because they were same rank at the same time in the service. Well, the Japs were pushing it back. So they needed another regiment. So they sent the 26th Regiment, which I was in. We got over there, the war was all done. They said, "We don't need you." So we went back to the large island of Hawaii, and we built up a huge base camp for the rest of the division. Probably 90,000 in the division. So all the rest of the people in the 5th Division, they got 30 days embarkation leave. We didn't get that.
No time off.
Yeah. Well, we got paid for it later.
Uh-huh.
But there was no place to go in Hawaii. There was one town about the size of Framingham called Hilo. But they wouldn't let more than 10 go at a time. So your chances of getting down there are very small. I just went on a work detail. I went down there on a work detail to unload a load of lumber, and I had a tally and it come off. That was good. But We, oh yes, there was going to have a battalion-sized operation. So which everybody had blacks. Now we had with us guys that had fought on Guadalcanal and New Holland, and they spent 30 months overseas, and they came back to the United States, and they got a 30-day furlough. Then they dumped them into the 5th Division and shipped them overseas. They were very unhappy.
I bet.
Well, apparently somebody had some live ammunition, because an officer got shot. And they ran the thing again the next day with the Army's Marine Corps CID. And apparently it had been a mortar range, and somebody stepped on a dud mortar that went off, and 3 or 4 people got wounded. So they announced that they knew who did it. They were going to tell us the next morning. We were all waiting in the breakfast time in the mess hall for the major to show up. Well, he didn't come. So they finally were overseeing what happened to him. He was here, but he was dead. Somebody had wrapped wire around his throat.
Oh my goodness.
So apparently it just stopped there. The guys we had were paratroopers and those Marine Raiders.
They were tough.
Oh, they were really different. And very unhappy. Well, we finally left at Christmas time to go to Iwo Jima. And well, the troop transport, there's 3,000 people. And they start feeding early in the morning until 9:30. Then 10 o'clock they start feeding until 2. And it gives them a half an hour to clean the mess hall, and then they feed the supper. And they give you different colored cards. But when your group is going through, you can eat. Well, this guy was from Texas. He must have been 6'6", very quiet. It was a redhead. And there was a little short Master at Arms in the Navy there with a big sheriff star on. And he told me, you can't eat because your group has gone by. Well, he picked him up and held him over the rail. And he says, you swim or I eat. Well, we got to Iwo after a long, long trip, 45 days. And it was beautiful in the Pacific. You have no idea how bright it is at night over there with the stars. Of course, the stars are all backwards for a while.
They would be.
The southern
hemisphere, right.
You weren't supposed to sit on the rail. That was a big convoy. It was probably 100 ships. There's so many in a line. And they zig and zag and... Well, some guy was sitting on the rail and he fell overboard just to die. Everybody waved goodbye to him.
That was the end of him.
No. We had the Canadian destroyer escorts going around the convoy. And they picked him up in the morning.
Oh, they did?
No sharks bothered them because every ship dumped all the garbage over the... And they were so well fed they didn't want him. Well, we landed in a great day on Iwo. And We got off. It's the first time after all the landings I made, like on all the different little islands right off the west coast. They dump you off in the water, and then you go in. This trip, landing craft came in and put the front of it down on the sand. And we walk up a hill. And I got up the top of the hill, and the sergeant in front of me, he was probably 4 feet in front of me, got hit with a mortar shell in the stomach. Blew him all over me. And I thought I was wounded because I was all bloody. But the 2 kids behind me got it. So they got it mostly in the arms and the legs. And I carried one and dragged the other down the hill. I just walked up to the aid station. And they were very lucky because they got on a small craft going around the hospital ship. And then a storm came up. And nothing came in, nothing went out. And the wounded were horrendous. They had a canvas over them to keep from the rain and the flying sand. But the Japs were on both sides, mortaring and shelling them. I was lucky. I dug a foxhole in and the side of the airstrip. The airstrip was up probably 8 feet high. It came down like that. We're there watching everything going on. And you could see the mortar shells coming. They come slow. All of a sudden, one came and landed right at the top of our foxhole. It didn't go off. It was just done.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Well, that's the way it was. From then, 42 days later, everybody got killed around me. But I got shot finally. I came home, that pocket full of money, because they paid me for all the time I didn't have off. I had 6 days in the brig for bread and water, but not coming back. I met a Sunday night. I was getting ready to get on the bus to come back. I met this very charming young lady. I stayed with her until Wednesday. She was a very agreeable girl. So when I went before the colonel, he says, I hope you enjoyed it because you got 6 days bread and water, solitary confinement. Well, I lived through that.
And then you came home.
I came home. I didn't know my mother had moved next door. Oh, I got discharged in Annapolis, Maryland. I took a train to Boston, and I took a train out to Framingham, then I got the bus to Hopkinton. And I stopped in Framingham. I wanted to rent a room at the hotel. He said there's no rooms there, and I wanted a shower, shave. But I'm coming up on the bus, and Andy Cassidy is driving. He said, Jesus, Jack, where the hell have you been? Everybody has been home for a year. Well, when my division went home at Christmas time in 1945, all us guys that were 17 when we went in had to do 6 more months as occupation duty in Japan.
No, wow.
And there was nothing in Japan. It had burned completely flat. We were down on Kyushu. That's where they dropped the atomic bomb there. But I slept in the ashes up there in October. Nobody said anything about fall. I've been waiting to get cancer ever since.
Apparently you've got a strong constitution.
Yeah.
You're okay.
We did a lot of things. Like when we first went to Hawaii, we had to build a huge reservoir on, it was either Mauna Kea or Mauna Loa, because there's snow up there all year round. And we were using so much water that the people who lived there didn't have any water. We made a humongous, I was the engineer off them. But when you go into combat, you become an infantry, because the regular infantry are all dead.
So you got home and found your mother next door?
Yeah, I come into this house and there's a strange lady. What are you doing in here? Well, I didn't know you, don't you? Who are you? And I told her, said, your mother moved next door. They never told me. No, she was working as a nurse at that time down at the telecom in Ashland. And I went down, picked her up, give her a big hug. And I asked how much room and board was going to be. She said $15 a week. Well, while I've been in the service, I sent home $15 a month to her. And I had my insurance made out to her, not to my father. She got at night, after you've been fighting all day, they straighten out a line. People that way up here come back, and then you have one guy out front about 50 yards is a listening post. You got a telephone. If they start coming, you tap, tap, tap. Well, they started coming, and I tap, 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 but at night, it's always misty because of volcanic island. Island is hot. So I ran right through. Yeah, I hid for 2 days until the Marines came back through. My mother got a telegram, says your son John is missing in action. Then a week later she got another one. This son John is wounded in action. That's all they tell you.
So she must have been really glad to see you.
Yeah, but I came back on the ship to go to Hawaii to the same camp. On the way over there was 3,000 of us. On the way back there was 500 of us. And all the wounded they couldn't save. They, so...
You were very lucky.
Yeah, I was, I know.
Really?
So every morning at 11 o'clock, convoy all turned one way and they're buried to death. That made quite a depression. And we finally got back to Hawaii and they were unloading some of the wounded. It was at night. And I'm watching them and where I'm standing it's dark and I'm up about 20 feet above them. They brought a guy out in a basket and they were lowering him down and it fell. And I chewed him out something real bad. They wanted to know who I was. I said, I know who I am. And I left. Oh.
That's a sad, sad memory.
Marine Corps was very good for me. It made me grow up.
Very fast.
Real fast. And once you're a Marine, you're always a Marine. You're not an ex-Marine, you're a former Marine. That's why I have that flag out there.
Of course. Yes, absolutely, John. And did you, when you got back here, I'm sorry, go ahead.
We get married. I had to ask my wife 7 times to go out with me because I had a bad boy reputation. And finally we went out, took her, I got all dressed up. I had my mother's car, I opened the door for her, and took her to a a movie, because she liked movies. I took her to a good restaurant, and I brought her home, brought her up the door, good night, got in the car and went home. So inside, the Mrs. Varnum with the two daughters, what's he like? What'd he do? She said, he's the politest man I ever met. I always helped her in the chair. And she said, I must have B.O. because he didn't even try to kiss me. But things changed after that. We got married. And at the time I was driving for Harold Penton's taxi, which then became Dawn Hitchens. And when marriage was going to be, we couldn't get married in the church because my wife was not a Catholic. In fact, we went up to meet the priest, and the first thing he said to me when I come in was, is this woman forcing you to marry her? And my wife got ready to bail him. I grabbed it. And we did go back, and so we got married at the rectory. And it was a very small wedding. I think my cousin Walter Burke and his wife were there, and my brother and sisters, mother and father. And at 2 o'clock we're supposed to get married. Well, my wife don't show up. She's boarding at Varnum's house, which is next to the fire station. And she's sleeping in the attic. That night a bite bit him on the lip. And she had this great big lip like...
Oh, the poor bride.
So anyway, she finally come up there, half an hour late. Then he asked me for the wedding certificate then. Oh, Jesus, it's home on top of the piano. Oh man said, I'll go get him. He shoots down to the central house, has a quick shot, and down the house and back and come in. We got married. We go in out there, and all the barber shop is right across the street, and all the guys I play cards with there, and they give me the hoo-ha. And Penty's got his cab there, and he's got about 40 cans behind it, and we drove all over town back to the Varnum's house.
That's a celebration.
It's going to be a very dry reception. And my cousin Walter Burke, he had 2 pints of vodka it's inside. When they weren't looking, he dumped it into the blueberry punch. And everybody is saying how wonderful this is.
And what a good time they were having.
My mother's getting drunk, Mrs. Varnum was getting drunk. And I said to Evelyn, I said, let's get the hell out of here. So we went up to Worcester, got a hotel up there, because our honeymoon was going to be down at George McBride's camp down in Dennisport. But now this was a Saturday before Thanksgiving. I don't know, before Labor Day. And we couldn't get out until Labor Day night. So we got down there, and they left. And that was the only cottage there was there. Now there's about 200. But there's all nice pines behind us, and beautiful beach. And we went down the beach in the morning. There was a big fish that had been cut off right here by a shark or something.
Oh my!
Evelyn wouldn't go in the water. So I went in and swam out the raft and come back. And then the shower was outdoors. Yeah, I'm going to take a shower. I said, Jesus, there's nobody around here. So she takes the shower. Okay, I do. And I did the cooking because she did not know how. Later she became a wonderful cook. And it seems that the thing she had to do, that's why. I don't think she wanted to work, unless you call. Taking care of 5 kids is work.
I call it work.
Yeah. But she didn't want to work. fact, I got her a couple of jobs and she quit in 2 hours.
She really didn't want to work.
Oh. But I was working 2 jobs. Well, I never was around when my kids were home.
Not with 2 jobs, no.
Huh?
Not with 2
I
jobs.
went to work at 5:45 in the morning. I'd come home at 3:30. When I first worked, I worked 3 split shift. But then I go to work as a bartender. I drive in cab, always 2 jobs. And when I had spare time and they were haying, I was haying. I can remember Rafford, they used to come and pick me up Sundays. They go pick up some pigs underneath somebody's barn. I wore old rubber boots. And I had one of those electrical sticks. Because those big hogs, they bite. But they did anything, it was $1 an hour.
Did your friends still live in town?
What's that?
Your friends, did you still have the same friends in town?
Did my friends say?
Did they live in town?
No, they all moved away.
Did they?
Over the years, some died, some moved away. In fact, there's just 2 of us out of the gang of kids. Billy Long lives over in Hopkinton, and I live here.
But when you first came back from the war, were you all...
Oh, there was everybody. But like I'd go to Carbone's night, 3 bartenders, 4 deep at the bar. And of course, these are all guys with pockets full of money. And pretty soon, over on this side, it was all girls looking for it. Yeah, after a couple of years, there weren't so many boys. A lot of weddings.
And John, what did you think of town politics along the way?
Oh, I was a Democrat, and the Democratic Town Committee used to have Danny's barber shop. And we would run a telephone line from the town hall down to the barber shop. And we had Miriam McCauley up there checking the people that come in, just voting us. And the ones that didn't show up, they'd call us and we'd call them. More old Irish ladies with no transportation. So there was all these people with big cars, and I was a driver. I'd go pick them up, and I'd go up to Maud Daly's, and Maud, you going to vote? Sure. Who do I vote for? You tell her who to vote for. and this is when you had the paper ballots.
Sure.
Well, lots of times they'd have to have 2 or 3 counts, because the way the Republicans counted and the way the Democrats counted, it became different.
Maybe not much has changed.
But anyway, it was a big party. At the time I was working for Hopkinton Grain Company. It was a lumber town now. I guess that's about all.
Okay. And what do you like about the town? What do you miss most about the town? The way it was?
Oh, I don't miss anything about the town. I think it's so much better now. And so much, everything is better. There's good doctors, good dentists. You got 2 good hospitals within 6 miles. Everything is so much better than...
Well, you have a very positive outlook, John.
What's that?
You're very positive. It keeps you young.
Well, the only thing is, eventually the kids took my car away from me, so I don't drive. I'm getting used to that. And I was fortunate I get enough money from my pension that I can hire people to do things.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time. Again, I'll just close out, and it's been wonderful talking with John Cahill at his home, and the date today is July 17th. And again, I'm Michael and Holmes closing out. Great. Thank you so much, John.